Welcome to this explainer of Chapter 6 from the Virtualization Options LLC report. Okay, let's just jump right in, because today we're taking a really critical look at what actually happens when research on AI infrastructure directly conflicts. Right now, across the United States, hyperscale facilities are being built at an absolutely unprecedented rate by major tech companies. It's like a gold rush. But as these massive data centers go up, they require huge amounts of electricity and water. So you might be wondering, how exactly are we measuring those environmental impacts? Well, as we're about to see from the source material, the data you get often depends entirely on who is paying for the research.
Seriously, think about this for a second. What happens when two scientific studies looking at the exact same piece of land and the exact same water source reach completely opposite conclusions? It kind of sounds like a riddle, right? But it's a very real scenario playing out right now. We are going to explore how the battle over AI data centers isn't just about zoning or land use. It is fundamentally about who funds the science and how that science ultimately shapes our future.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at when research directly conflicts. Second, the Virginia groundwater case. Third, local decisions versus conflicting data. And fourth, we'll wrap up with proposed federal policy solutions. Let's get into it.
Part 1. When research directly conflicts, specifically looking at case comparisons. We really need to understand how methodological choices and institutional factors produce such wide, almost baffling divergences in the scientific literature. Our explainer today is grounded entirely in Chapter 6 of this specific report from Virtualization Options LLC. What this chapter does so incredibly well is provide documented, highly granular cases where research findings are in direct opposition. It maps out the landscape of conflicting research, identifying where industry-aligned studies systematically lean toward lower impact estimates, while independent or advocacy-aligned studies lean toward higher ones.
Moving right along to Part 2, the Virginia groundwater case. This is our localized case study, which is great because it lets us see this conflict step out of the academic realm and play out in the real world.
Okay, here we have two competing pieces of research evaluating the exact same proposed development area. On one side, we have a study conducted by which was industry-funded. On the other side, we have a study conducted by Virginia Commonwealth University, or VCU, which was funded independently by the National Science Foundation. As completely neutral observers just examining the source material here, we simply want to point out the structural difference in the funding sources for these two studies. They are looking at the exact same ground, but with very different financial backing.
Now, what's really fascinating is the stark contrast in methodologies. The industry-funded study used a proprietary model with completely undisclosed calibration data. And their conclusion? They basically said, hey, there's no significant groundwater risk. Development can proceed as proposed. Conversely, the independently funded VCU study used a public model calibrated by the U.S. Geological Survey utilizing open data. Their conclusion was the exact opposite. They stated the development requires significant hydrological mitigation or a total redesign. Night and day, right?
So the absolutely crucial point here is this specific number, 12 to 14%. The independent VCU study projected a 12 to 14% reduction in aquifer recharge if the project went forward. And guys, this isn't some minor rounding error. A 12 to 14% drop in aquifer recharge is a massive hydrological impact, which is exactly why they called for immediate mitigation.
Which brings us to Part 3, local decisions and the bureaucratic reality. With two wildly different scientific conclusions sitting on the desk, how did local policymakers actually handle this reality? Well, here is exactly how the Prince William County Planning Commission handled it. Step 1, the commission cites the industry-funded study to officially approve the project. Step 2, the independent VCU study is formally entered into the record. But Step 3, and honestly this is the shocking part, the VCU findings, including that massive 12 to 14% aquifer reduction, are entirely omitted from the final written approval. The independent data was literally just swept under the rug. Let's take a deep breath here. When local commissions are able to cherry-pick proprietary industry-funded data over open, independent science, it poses a massive systemic problem for everyone. So how do we actually fix this evidence gap on a national level? How do we ensure that our major infrastructure decisions are made using objective facts?
That leads us nicely into Part 4, Proposed Federal Policy Solutions. Chapter 6 outlines a really comprehensive approach to structural change and how we evaluate AI data centers.
The report lays out 4 distinct, totally actionable steps for federal policymakers. Those are establishing mandatory environmental disclosure, restoring agency scientific independence, reversing categorical exclusion expansion, and intentionally funding independent research. Let's break these down one by one to see how that actually work in practice.
First up is mandatory environmental disclosure. The report suggests Congress should enact legislation requiring any data center over 25 megawatts of IT load to report their data quarterly. We're talking electricity consumption, water withdrawal, direct emissions, the whole shebang. And crucially, this wouldn't just be some voluntary hodgepodge system, it would be reported to a publicly accessible federal database using strict, standardized methodologies developed by NIST, the EPA, and the Department of Energy. Boom. This eliminates the undisclosed data problem entirely.
The second solution is to restore agency scientific independence. The source material notes instances of pressure on federal agencies to basically soften findings to accelerate permitting. To combat this, the report recommends codifying existing scientific integrity policies directly into statute. This legally prevents politically appointed agency leaders from suppressing or redirecting objective research just because it doesn't align with current policy goals. It also demands robust whistleblower protections and independent inspector general review authority, to keep the system honest.
Third, we need to reverse categorical expansion. Currently, there are certain guidelines that actually allow data center projects to bypass rigorous environmental reviews. The Environmental Law Institute proposes a strict threshold here. Any data center development above 50 megawatts of IT load should automatically trigger a full environmental impact statement, or EIS. Furthermore, this statement must be subject to an independent technical review, ensuring that these massive hyperscale facilities absolutely cannot slip through regulatory loopholes.
And the final solution addresses the very root cause of the Virginia case we talked about, funding independent research. The National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy must establish dedicated, competitive grants strictly for studying data center environmental impacts. To eliminate conflicts of interest, these grants would explicitly prohibit industry funding for the researchers and prohibit peer review by anyone with industry financial ties. It is a complete structural firewall to protect the integrity of the science.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly vital question. As hyperscale facilities continue their rapid expansion across our communities, are we building our AI future on a foundation of facts or a foundation of funding? Chapter 6 of the Virtualization Options Report makes it abundantly clear that until we implement structural, federal changes to demand transparency and protect independent science, the battle over the evidence is just going to continue to be waged. And unfortunately, the environment may pay the price. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a much clearer lens through which to view the physical footprint of our digital world.